Okay, this week we have a show-stopping guest about to take a bow. I mean, I'm so excited for this one. You all know her. We all love her. From the moment that she took her Broadway debut, we all fell in love in Head Over Heels, and now she's literally making you cry of laughter for about 2 hours straight in Kimberly Akimbo as Aunt Deborah. So everyone, welcome to Take a Bow, Bauntie Milligan. Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great. Happy
Yeah.
to be here.
Happy to be here on this fabulous Thursday after a two-show day yesterday and a show
Yes.
tonight. Oh my
Yes.
God, busy girl. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Talk to me about why we're here today. What made you want to become a performer? Like, what inspired you to want to tell stories and stuff like that?
Well, I guess it's kind of in my DNA. My parents were musicians and in the church, but I grew up singing
Period.
as soon as I could talk, and there's a fair amount of storytelling there. And I loved movie musicals. Like I loved the Carol Burnett, Tim Curry, Burnett Peters, Annie, obviously.
Yes,
My grandma used to say I would watch it. Like there was one day I watched it like 5 times in a row at her house. I was like, again. So
as one
I
does.
one does. I grew up on those and like the old Hollywood musicals like with Doris Day or,
Oh my
Singing
God.
in the Rain and all that kind of stuff, The King and I. And so I
Yes.
grew up loving it for forever. And then when I was 10, I got in the 5th grade like
Mm.
Christmas play and I got to act for the first time. And it wasn't just me singing as myself, telling a story on stage, which was already what I was used to. I was actually becoming someone else. And that's when I was like
Oh.
truly hooked to be like, oh, okay, I want to do this. Like it marries both parts of me, like the very dramatic part and the singing part. But I get to then become someone else was just like so enticing. So, I mean, I have like journal entries from when I was 10 years old, being like, I know what I want to do now. I'm going to be an
Stop.
actress. Like, it's so dramatic, also, how I wrote. I was just like, okay, girl. Yeah.
That's literally the cutest thing in the world. Um, so how did we get to Broadway? Talk to me about your journey through Head Over Heels, because you were in it from like the very beginning, right?
Yeah, from the very beginning. I was performing down off Broadway at the Flea
Uh-huh.
Theater down in Tribeca, and I was
Okay.
doing these epic shows that Ed Sylvanus Iskandar was a guest director who was directing, and so they would literally be like a 4.5 hour show of Greek tragedy, but they added singers to it. And it was Sean Graney's adaptation of These Seven Sicknesses, which was all of Sophocles' shows from, um, oh Lord, how's it start? Oedipus Rex down to Antigone. So it's 7
Mm,
shows in one night. And the way
wow.
they utilized the Greek chorus, they set it all in like a hospital. And go figure, you can do that with Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
And the Greek chorus became these 6 singing nurses. And so that's how I
Wow.
started, was doing that. And Ed, a big part of his idea and mission was the idea of community with theater. And so a big thing was mingling with audience. So
Mm.
when you came in, you were greeted. I would be there in my costume, but I would say, I'm Bonnie, not like I'm nurse 6 or whichever one I
Oh,
was.
wow.
Um, how are you? Thanks for coming. Can I help you to your seat? And then because they were so long that we had 2 intermissions, and the first one we gave you dinner, and the second one we gave you dessert. So the food was also served to you by the actors. And it
Wow.
was all about the mingling aspect.
Oh
And,
my
to be
God.
young and to be kind of taught about networking and making connections with human beings, and how vital that was incredibly vital to my career and how I kind of got going. And in that setting, I met Jeff Whitty, who it was his first idea to do Head Over Heels. And so when they went to do the first reading of it
Mm.
in 2014, I did not have an equity card. I did not have an agent.
Oh
And
my
he and Ed
God.
said, Bonnie should do this reading. And so I got to do this reading with like Broadway stars.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, what's happening? And over the years, many things changed and many people sort of left the project, but I was like the one person who stayed. Well, me and the Go-Gos, who
Uh-huh.
weren't always involved,
Period.
but it was
Wow.
kind of crazy. So that took from 2014. Then we went to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in 2015. That was the world premiere of that. And then they sort of decided to wipe the slate clean and do with a whole new creative team and a whole new cast. And I stayed. And that was a really crazy emotional process and like a weird survivor's guilt kind of a thing.
Sure.
That you're like, wait, what? Um, and then through when Michael Mayer took over in 2016, and then slowly some workshops and labs, we finally landed on Broadway in summer of 2018.
Oh my god. What an iconic show. I literally could not imagine anyone else playing Pamela, and then I saw that a production of Montclair State University was doing Head Over Heels, and I literally went to see it because I was like, "I just can't see anyone else doing this show." Like, that entire
Yeah.
cast, it seemed like the show was written for you guys, literally. Especially you in your role. Like, it was just your voice is incredible. And we can get into that. Like, did you always have that voice from like a very young age, or is that something that you kind of grew into?
It definitely like changed over the years. I always sang. I think it was a much more sort of like mixy, sweet ingenue kind of placement when I was younger.
Really?
But then when I would sing along to the radio, I would mimic that. So I did try to sing like Celine Dion and Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston and Reba McEntire. So a bigger voice
Right.
did come out of me. But like if you gave me a sheet of music, I kind of thought, well, I'm supposed to sing a different way. So I didn't
Mm,
necessarily like put the two parts of my voice together
right.
until I got into college and I was doing a Kristen Linklater voice class just for acting, like, just as an actor, not singing. And
Sure.
when I was learning about my resonators is when I started being like, wait, this kind of sounds like singing, and wait, I can. And so I sort of then developed my own way of marrying those parts of myself
Wow.
in my 20s and being like, oh, this is okay, this is how I can sound. And so my voice absolutely evolved um
Hmm.
over the years. But I also was always, it was always kind of there, but I guess I didn't have the confidence in it till much later.
Sure. And that's so interesting that you say that, like, because I mean, everyone grows up, just listening to cast albums or pop songs on
Yeah.
the radio or whatever and just singing along to it. Um, did you ever, like, listen to the Go Go's before Head Over Heels? Or was that, like,
You know,
introduced to
I
you?
I knew like the popular songs, but I didn't know a
Sure.
lot of the Go-Go's catalog until that. And some songs I'd known, but I had no idea they were from the Go-Go's. That I'd be like, oh,
Right.
that song. Oh, okay. Because it was a little before my generation, so I didn't grow up with them. But then the more I learned about their history as a group and how groundbreaking they were as women in the
Mm,
music industry and everything they did, they were kind of the first group of women that wrote and played their own music. Like it
right.
wasn't men writing for them. It was like they did it themselves. They were this punk rock group of people that like were like, we're gonna say what we gotta say.
Right.
And it's amazing. Like even I think Good Girl was this beautiful ballad and Head Over Heels, like it became a trio. But the
Hmm.
words themselves are, like, really intense when you think about it, that it's just like, "Oh, good girl, good dog. Got it. Like,
Right.
I'll just do what I'm told. And here on my
Right.
epitaph." Like, it's so dramatic. Like, I hope my gravestone reads that I was a good girl. Like, it's badass. Sorry to
Right.
curse. But,
No,
like,
it's great. You're totally
it's
fine.
it's amazing that, that 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 is who they were. They were so groundbreaking. The fact that it took, was it last year, the year before? It's been in the recent 3 years that they finally got inducted into the
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And in my opinion, it took way too long. They were such groundbreakers. Um,
Absolutely.
and then to get to meet them as human beings and hear about their story. They're so down to earth. Like every single
Oh,
one of them is truly unreal. So getting to really learn about their catalog, learn about their history as who they are in the music world was like such a gift. So cool.
that's so freaking cool. Yeah, literally. Well, what about like when you're like, handed this music, and it's that kind of mix of, getting that sheet music and then of course that pop funk song. I don't know. And like, were you given that freedom to like discover where your voice sits in that? Was that kind of written for you? Like, did you have that freedom to play? What was that like?
That was definitely like I think we found our own sound with it. It was definitely huge on
Hmm.
I got to really develop what that would be. Honestly, early on, I just wanted to keep the job because again, like I
Yeah.
said when I started, I didn't have any
Real.
representation. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any credits. And
Mm.
so I'm like, they're going to replace me and be like, Adele, do you want to do Broadway? You know what I mean? Like it could be anything. And
Literally.
so I wanted to make it as personal to my voice and my capabilities as possible so that it could feel really hard for somebody else to just swoop in and be better.
Right.
Um, and so some things like how much more when I'm tearing apart the room and there's like four key changes. Those key changes were my idea. I was like, what
Oh
if we
my god.
just keep going up? And they're like, "Yes,"
Iconic.
um, and then later when you're like, "Why did I do that to myself when I'm doing this 8
Right.
times a week?" But,
Yep.
like, it's great storytelling and it makes sense. She's losing her mind, her voice is getting higher and higher. Um, but then I was also able to say between our out of town run or between all the workshops and then actually getting ready for Broadway, knowing it's my Broadway debut. I was on tour with Kinky Boots, so I had experienced a long
Yes.
time in a show, but I was like, 8 shows a week, I know is hard. I just did that with Kinky Boots and I don't want to like kill myself. So then
Right.
I could be like in this song, like in Good Girl, can I not always be on the top part? Can I do some alto?
Mm.
Can I switch it up vocally in the group numbers when we have more people? Like, can I just not have to like live in this crazy high place all the time? So I had a lot of say in
Right.
that. Um and I don't honestly remember how much like whose decision it was about style of singing. I think it was definitely like, in talks with Michael Mayer or in talks with Tom Kitt, who music supervised everything,
Hmm.
that it would be like, well, I want to sound a little more Go-Go's here. So I'm going to straight tone more than I normally would if I was singing musical theater. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
when I sing beautiful, it's not going to be like, fall. It's, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to switch it
Oh
up.
my gosh, she's warm. Yeah.
Um, well, let's not go higher.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So yeah, so it's very collaborative.
Um,
And then like Michael Mayer's the one who said automatic rainy day, he wanted it to become a riff off. So it was him being like,
oh yeah.
what, let's go crazy. And then as the actor, you're like, oh, absolutely. And when Taylor Iman Jones and I were playing around, it became like, well, Pamela cannot be one upped because I'm on the defense
Hmm.
here. I'm the one that's freaking out. I don't know what's going on inside of me emotionally. And all I know is I have to win this fight. And
Yeah.
that Mopsa is in a place where she's like, "Ugh, fine." You know what I mean? That like
Totally.
dramaturgically, we're gonna go back and forth, and then Pamela's just gonna be so out of control that Mopsa just stops, and then you're like,
Right.
okay, look at it, okay, yes. So that became a
It was
collaboration in the
perfect.
room of you have Tom and Michael saying things, then me and Taylor coming up with things, and then that's how
Mm.
it was set. So it was all, yeah, very collaborative.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and I just want to talk really quickly, like about this is your first credit, I guess you could say, like Broadway credit, in the sense that when you're a young person entering this industry, it's so easy to sell yourself short and say yes to everything, and like
Mhm.
just kind of you know throw away of like what about my health kind of thing, and just like do it to impress. So like kudos to you
Thank
in
you.
kind of taking that liberty for yourself and being mindful of that. That's huge. And for a lot of people listening too, really hopefully take that advice because it's much easier said than done, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, but that's awesome, and it's still made for a perfect product. So I mean, what you
Hmm.
guys did in that show was just ridiculous, and to do it in a healthy way is even better. So that's amazing to hear. Yeah, for sure. So what about talk to me about Kimberly Akimbo, because that's currently what you're in,
Hmm.
and it's literally like one of the most beautiful Broadway shows I've ever seen. And especially in this kind of world that we're living in now, this world of Broadway, there's not anything like it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what it's like to be a part of such a unique story and a unique show and in a new show in this kind of day and age of Broadway.
It feels like a gift, like a really special gift.
Hmm.
This was the first thing I did post pandemic. This was when theater was really coming
Mm.
back, when we did it at the Atlantic,
Yeah.
back in 2022. 2021, my God, time. I don't even know time anymore. Um,
It's not a thing.
it's not a thing.
No.
I got the role over the pandemic of a self tape in May of
Wow.
2020, and we started rehearsals in September of 21. So it was a long time to be like, is this show going to happen? I don't know. I think I have a show when we're out of this thing, but who knows?
Uh,
And time was really a black hole. And so to be back in a room collaborating with like the most brilliant creators and artists
Literally.
was just a dream on so many levels. And David Lindsay-Abaire and Jeanine Tesori, our writers, are the most, first of all, iconic people.
Yeah.
The list of what they have done is unbelievable, that you're like,
It's
that could be super
stupid.
intimidating.
Yeah,
They're the
it's ridiculous.
smartest. They're the smartest people, and they're the most wonderfully collaborative. They are not super precious
Oh,
about things, that if you're like, I have an idea I want to go with, like, they're like, okay, great. Oh, great. And then they go with it. And then, some things would change, or some things would adjust to my take on the character, or Vicky's take, like they were in
sure.
the room and it was so collaborative. So that was incredible. Jeanine said she wrote the top of Act Two, the How to Wash a Check, specifically for me because of the energy I had brought to Deborah,
Stop it.
which was a very different energy than they had seen before. And she's like, it's much more sly. It's much more all these things, that unassuming. And you're like, okay, great. So, and Better shifted a lot from, that was one of the things I auditioned with. Where I got like a little MIDI file, an
Oh.
email, to learn the track to sing
Oh
to for my
yeah.
self tape. And it, ended on a C note, like a C5.
Wow.
And now it ends on a G5. And it's just like, that's a fifth up. And for the music lovers out there.
Oh my god.
And it was something that like became collaborative in the room, but also like Jeanine Tesori is so brilliant and so smart. She's such a storyteller,
Mm.
that at one point I felt, when we were rehearsing between Off and On Broadway, I'd said, because we'd switched a few things around with other characters, not necessarily my own, but because other people had changed in the scene, it absolutely changed how I would react and how I would feel. And I said, well, now I just feel
Sure.
like I'm singing to sing at the end. I'm like riffing to riff. And I
Oh.
don't love that. Like I want intention behind what I'm singing. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said it. I fully agree. Riffing just to riff or just to hear yourself sing is not storytelling. And
Right.
let's find cause for it. And I was like, okay, great. And so we could talk it out, that it's like still an obstacle to get Kimmy on board before she gets on board. So it's like it becomes storytelling with the person who wrote it right in front of you, and creating it. I mean, during previews, we were switching the song, and she's like, it's not quite
Yeah.
enough. And I remember going down to the lobby with her and our music director, to change something at the end of Better. And she's like, can I write on you? And that was like the most iconic thing to hear Jeanine Tesori say that out loud to you. And you're like, absolutely. And so
Oh
she would
my
say, can you
god.
sing this like this? And I would do it. And she's like, now can you try this? Okay, I like that. And then you're like, what did I just do?
Right.
And so it became like this thing of, yeah, absolutely. Let's write on this on me. Okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
and it was that. So honestly, this was full dreams on every level, so collaborative. And to have done it in a period after having not done anything was
Yeah.
just dreamy. And then to share a stage with Victoria Clark, Stephen
What?
Boyer, Ali Mozzie, like, and all these brilliant newcomers, like,
Yeah.
it's ideal in every way.
Yeah. No, that cast is absurd. And
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with like how intimate of a cast it is. You know, like there's
Yeah.
not like the stage
9.
doesn't fill up, but you all fill it up, you know? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it's brilliant. Like everything just comes together so beautifully. And I saw it at Atlantic, and like right then and there you just knew like from the beginning that like this was going to be something special, you know, like there was something
Yeah.
here, you know, it was really it just from the beginning. And that obviously has a lot to do with the creative team and just the writing of it all and
Yeah.
how they did it. They're just absolutely brilliant. So it's really cool to hear, you know, that process that you kind of went through with them. It's really cool. What's it like, you know, with like these newcomers? You know, you're kind of the vet here.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that kind of fun? And like, are you kind of giving advice, or like, are you still kind of starstruck from Vicky? I mean, it's hard not to be.
Right.
Um, whatever. What is that like?
It's so interesting. I'm like the middle child of the cast age-wise. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, they're like,
Right,
"Okay." And I'm like, I'm so used to always playing like a younger person, and so I'm like, "Oh, actually playing someone in their 30s. How exciting." Um,
right,
and that I it's amazing. I mean, the kids, I feel very, I call them kids. They're not kids, they're young adults. They're professionals.
right.
But I feel so protective of them. And I'll say things like, I know you didn't ask my advice, but I would just like to give you some. And they're like, no, 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 I'll take it. Thank you. Cause I'm worried for, I'm like, if you can't speak up about this, let me speak up for you, or like, what's going on? And I try to
Oh,
check in and make sure, the vibes around me are happening. And I do that with the adults as well. You know, I'm like, are you doing okay? Like, what's going on?
sure.
Um, but the kids have started calling me Bauntie instead of aunt, Auntie B Bauntie. So
Amazing.
I am Bauntie to them. And I said, if you ever
Yes.
need anything, you let me know. I will, as Deborah yells at Seth in the library, I will F you up. And I was like, I'll do
Y-
that to someone for you if you need me to. Like, I will F
Right.
somebody up. Let's go. And um
I
and
would be
I'm
so
not condoning
scared.
violence, listeners. I'm not condoning violence. But I'm like, we're all in this together, and I've tried to share wisdom when I felt like they want it. And again, when someone was not feeling well, I texted her that night and I said, I know you didn't ask for my advice, but here it is. And
Oh,
that I'm like, it's okay if you need to call out, if you need to go to a doctor. Your health is what's most important. No one here is judging. And she was like, well,
right.
I feel like a failure. And I was like, I felt the same way when I was in my Broadway
Mm,
debut, because you want to be there all the time. And I know your heart. And also, we are human. We are not robots. We can't be perfect. Not every
right.
night can be perfect. Not every show can be perfect. And we do the best we can. And she always did. So I'm like, I just want to like say, like, I just think, in my opinion, but I know, and we're going back for, she's like, no, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And
Mm,
there's stuff like that like I do my best to just be a friend to everyone around me.
yeah.
Never, you know, hopefully not giving out advice that is not warranted or wanted.
Yeah.
Just saying I'm here if you need me. And I'm also the equity deputy on the show, so I can sometimes
Period.
say I'm your deputy. So if you need me to take this up to somebody, you can be anonymous. Well, what do we need? What do we need?
It's
Um,
so funny you say that. That was literally going to be my next question, because I was like, it literally sounds like you'd be perfect for it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh my god. We all need a Bauntie in our life. Come
There you
on.
go.
Yeah.
Find a Bauntie.
Yeah. Speaking of like, I don't know, kind of like taking on that aunt role behind the stage, like backstage and everything. Is there like, I don't know, Aunt Deborah's just like such a character and so much to work with. Is there
Yeah.
anything that like, you find yourself relating to her? Like, how do you do this 8 shows a week? Bring this like, badass aunt up on stage.
Right.
Know.
I think, my way in with her has been a deep love of Kimmy, of Victoria Clark, which
Sure.
tracks. And now we are very good friends. So
Oh.
it's easy to connect with her in that way and to bring a fierce love. Now, Deborah is also incredibly flawed, and she is a survivor, and she does some very questionable things in order to
Yeah.
survive. And I've known people in my life that have done the same, that have done incredibly questionable things, who I don't look at as villains. I don't look at as bad people.
Mm,
I know somebody that is like an eternal victim. And it's just
mm,
like, but she also had really treacherous beginnings. And so on paper,
right.
you can be like, I get it. And but then she's done awful things. You're like, but that's, can you tell that that's bad? And we're an adult now and you don't have to, but she can't. And
Right.
so that's where I take Deborah from, is
Mm-hmm.
that this is how I connect with her to make her as human as possible, to make her not just some bad guy. But like when I say to Justin, I'm sorry, Seth, at one point in the show, um, you need to stop worrying about other people and start taking care of yourself. In the end, it's all
Mm,
that matters. And I don't read that off as a mean thing. I look
right.
at it, I look at it as an incredibly generous piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like kind of like you're saying something awful because he's worried about something. And I'm like, stop. But it's more like, hey, babe, like this is going to be painful for you because people are going to let you down all the time. You only need to worry about this.
Mm,
And I think that is her way of like actually being helpful and being generous. And it's not a generous statement to people in general. Like you should like care about others. But like in Deb's mind, it's
right.
like nobody's looked out for me. Nobody has. I've looked out for myself for probably a really long time.
Yeah.
For, at least that's my characterization, my own table work of it all. That she comes from a lonely, kind of dark place, and she uses
Yeah.
humor and she uses her charisma to get people on her side and hopefully get them to do what she wants. But at the end of the day, I probably care most about Kimberly. That's a genuine love. And I have my own issues with my sister, Ali Mazi, and definitely issues with my brother-in-law, Stephen Boyer. And that's how I dialed my way in, is to
Sure.
try to find the most human approach to someone who does some awful things as
Mm-hmm.
possible, is to make her a fully rounded human who is not malicious or evil intended.
Right. It totally makes sense. I mean, especially with that line, like you're just protecting Seth at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to help him, you're not trying to
Yeah.
help anyone else. And it's cool to see, that shift in Deborah where she starts kind of protecting these kids, that because she does only worry about herself, like for
Well, I
so
think
long.
I don't I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but there is something that happens in act 2
Hmm.
where it's like I need to shift the plan. Um
Yeah.
and I'm going to shift it because it's in Kimberly's best interest. And Seth still agrees to go with it. And I think in Deborah's book that earns her respect for him. And so I do treat Seth a little
Uh,
differently in the last 2 scenes. And that's the shift for me, is because he has agreed to go forward. And
oh.
that's the other kids have too. And wow, I kind of, because I kind of don't care about them that much. Definitely the beginning, like the beginning act 2, all that stuff. I'm like, they're strangers. Who cares? Um,
Right.
But that has shifted something for me, that their care of Kimberly or their care of something else has let them still go in on this scheme. And
Sure.
so that is why I'm a little more ginger with him than I was at the end of the first scene of Act Two, when I'm like,
Yeah.
decide what you want to do, because I'm over
Right.
it. To seeing him again, don't want to spoil alert, in a certain place, and um and being a little jokey with him and being a little side with him, because our relationship has shifted off stage. The audience doesn't see it, but that's part of table work, knowing where you get from one place to the other. So
Absolutely.
when he and I were talking one day, we went to lunch, we were doing rehearsals, and I said, but I do look at you differently because of, there's been 3 days where this has happened. And he was like,
Mm.
oh yeah, yeah. And I'm like, so that is why I do have a shift in how I look at you. And
Right.
it always, you got to know where you're coming from at all places. So that is Deborah's way of love of this kid who was going to do something nice for her
Yeah.
that was unexpected. And you're like, okay, well then let me help you out, babe. You're worried?
Right.
Stop.
That's so interesting to hear because it's like as an audience member, I'll never forget like the first time I ever saw it. I, I mean, like Aunt Deborah was literally one of my favorite characters, and I went home and I was like, why was I rooting for her? Like, she's literally like
Yeah.
the villain, you know? Yeah,
Right.
and but then you somehow just like, I mean, you win us over. You just win the audience over, and we fall in love with you like from the moment
Yeah.
you walk on stage. Heck, you walk on stage in this show with you get an entrance applause. How cool is that? You're
It's
like
really
Patty
cool.
LaPone and Kelly O'Hara and Audra
It's nuts.
McDonald.
I mean, it doesn't happen every night, but like about half the week. And it's every time I'm kind of surprised by it. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful and really lovely. And the theater nerd in me is like, like every time. It's really awesome. It's really cool.
That's freaking crazy. Like literally, like the legends get
Yeah.
entrance applause, and you are one of them. So come
Oh,
on,
thank you.
Bonnie Milligan, get it? That's just insane. Well, so this week, it Tuesday actually, so not too far away. The cast album for Kimberly Akimbo's coming out.
Yes.
Yay! Which is so exciting. And we can actually listen to like one of your iconic songs, Better,
Hmm.
already. It's already
Yeah.
released on all the streaming platforms, but the full album comes out Tuesday. Talk to me about, this is your second cast album. How cool is that to be a part of a cast album, number one, but also, share this score and kind of the story with everyone around the world?
It is iconic. I mean, it is like
Yeah.
something you dream of. I mean, I was that kid that loved getting cast albums, and you would get the little CD booklets and read about the show in the booklet, because
Oh yeah.
wasn't like hardcore. I mean, I'm not that old, but that's just what we did. And um, I remember after Head Over Heels, I had did a video message and I sent it to my friend,
Mm.
and because I wanted to remember how I felt. And it was 2 days in a row. We were like, busy in shows. I was also doing a reading. I mean, I was doing so
Oh
much.
God.
And I said, I did it. And I'm really proud of myself. And that I've never been so tired. And this was really hard. And I started crying. And I was like, but I'm
Oh.
really proud. And that, I love that I have that clip to remember.
Mhm.
And this one, they spread out our recording days. So we did half when we had just started tech. And
Oh.
then we did a few songs that they're like, these probably won't change. And then we did the other half, and more than half, in December. Um,
Oh, wow.
and they wanted us to just be rested and stuff. And there was something like, even if you watch that video of Better, the video they released before they released the number, the riffs are different in the end, because
Mm.
by the time they were like, let's record, I said, could I re-record my riffs in the end? And Jeanine Tesori was like, but I love them. That's so great. And I was like, I know, but I changed those before our first audience of previews because
Oh.
of the storytelling. We had really focused in, like I said, I feel like I'm singing to sing, and I want to set what I'm actually doing. And it's not written in the score. So it's like up to me. So I said, if Kim, she was kind of on board a lot earlier at the Atlantic. So what they kind of refocused was her not being so on board for during the
Right.
song, which is great because that gives me something to do with the song. And after the kids and I are like, we do like a little dance down the stage together, and I turn and she's still not on board, is what motivates my like G, like, "Oh, well, come on, Kimmy," looking at her like, come on. And then she starts to dance. So the next riff is lower because I got her. I'm like, you gotta
Right.
make your life. That it's like so much more cooler because I know I've got her. And then at the end, it's celebratory. And so it's a little
Ah,
different on the first take that we did in October. And so I said, I set my riffs like by the first audience, and that's what I always do. And I would like that to reflect on the album if we
sure.
can. And so I was like, okay. So they let me like redo just literally two riffs. But I was
Oh,
like, I would like to redo those because I would like the album to sound like what I do, you know?
right.
And it was just so interesting hearing kind of a time capsule on something that did shift with audiences. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I hadn't had an audience yet.
Mm.
And but I am so excited to hear all of it. Like in my
Yeah.
headphones, like being surrounded, like, I listen to this show 8 times a week, and yet I can't wait for
Right.
the album. It's ridiculous. Um,
Oh, so
and yeah,
you
it
are
comes out.
someone that can listen to it?
Oh yeah,
You can
definitely.
do you listen to yourself and things?
I can, yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god, good for you. I
I
mean, with
don't
that
always
voice.
like YouTube clip, like watching myself sing. I don't necessarily love that, but
Okay.
like I'm not like, yeah, take it in again. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
I'm more
Fair
excited
enough.
to hear everybody else's numbers. Is what I mean to say. Like, Make a Wish. Let me listen to it on a loop.
Ah,
Father Time.
literally.
Let's go. I can't wait to hear how it all comes together. Um,
Mhm.
Even though, again, I hear these shows through the speakers if I'm changing, you know what I mean? It's very different than
Oh,
in the
yeah.
background than in my earphones.
Absolutely. Well, do you have a favorite song in the show? I know that's a really hard question, but
Oh, wow.
is there gonna be one that's on repeat?
I really do love Make a Wish, which is
Yeah?
Vicky's first like solo. I
Mhm.
think it's so beautiful. She's such a genius, and her acting, the longing in her voice is just like perfect. And
Mm.
so I'm ready for that. I'm also really excited to hear Skater Planet, the
I
first song of
love
the
that
show with all
song.
the kids. I love that song.
Uh-oh,
I
uh-oh.
love the orchestrations, and so I'm really excited to hear those in my like headphones. Um
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I think
I'm
those
so
are
excited.
I'm most looking forward to those.
Yay, I love that. And then I mean, I everyone go listen to this album because I mean, like you said, David Lindsay-Abaire and Jeanine Tesori writing the album. It's bound to be an amazing score and everything. So everyone go check that out. It literally comes out Tuesday, so mark it on your calendars.
Yeah.
And then I have one last question for you, and then
Sure.
I'm gonna let you go because I'm just so interested in asking you. It's very rare that I've talked to 140 people. You're gonna be like one of the like 141st episode or whatever, and it's very rare to have someone that's only done original Broadway shows or
Yeah.
like roles of that are. So you've created these roles. Is there a role that you would want to play on Broadway that like already exists? I mean, I know it's like a dream role kind of question and it's cliche,
Yeah.
but is
I
there
would love
one?
to do any Sondheim show. I've always
Oh,
said, I'd love to get my hand. And she's doing it this season. Mrs. Lovett, I would love to do one day. Down the line, I think for me, Mama Rose down the line. Like most of my
yes.
dream roles are for like when I'm in my 50s. Um, and I just would love to do Sondheim because the work is so. What I love so much about Kimberly Kimbo between David and Jeanine is it's so deep, it's so rich. The work is there. You just
Yeah.
get to show up and like make your imaginary circumstances for like your backstories or whatever, but like it's there. And so it's delightful work. You don't have to, I've done some readings where, ooh, there's not a lot to mine. And so there is
Mm,
so much. So I would love to do any Stephen Sondheim.
yeah.
Um, 100%. And
Brilliant.
I've done some like readings of revivals. I had a great time doing the Full Monty. We did a reading of that
Oh,
a few years back. I don't know if that'll ever come back, but that was a good time. Um,
yeah.
yeah, anything.
Listen, I want to be on the producing team that has you as Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd because I think that would be absolutely iconic. We're gonna make it happen.
Great.
2035.
There we
It's
go. Into
happening.
it. Love
Yeah.
it.
Oh my God. Well, Bonte, this is so wonderful. Seriously, this has been an absolute treat, and it's such a pleasure talking to you. You have so much to be proud of with your
Thank
young
you.
career. Like I literally, it's gonna be amazing, and we're going to be seeing you on Broadway for years to come, so I can't wait to
Thanks.
see. Yeah, of course, everyone go see Kimberly Akimbo. Everyone go check out the album. You're an absolute treat. You're an absolute talent.
Oh,
So everyone
thanks.
will fall in love, and yeah, you definitely deserve to take a bow, so thank you,
I
Bonnie.
appreciate it. Thanks,
Of
Eli.
course.